Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Ronika Merl. Is an award-winning screen director and literary author based in Ireland. With over 20 feature-length scripts to her name, she is a prominent figure in the international film and literary communities. Her work spans multiple continents, including the United States, the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Australia, where she has consulted on productions and mentored emerging writers. I love our alignment. Welcome to the Little Less Fear podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, such a pleasure to be here. It's just amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And so people that are viewing this, that are actually watching this on YouTube, the reason why her screen is not there. I mean, she's there. We were trying to connect, but there just seemed to be some type of connection problem. But whatever the reason is, we're here connecting through our voices, and I'm really blessed to be connecting even from where she's at in Ireland. What time is it at in Ireland?
It is 10:30 in the evening in Ireland.
Wow.
It's just starting to get dark. It stays light forever in the summertime
Wow.
because we're this far north. So the sun doesn't actually set. The sun set about 10 minutes ago, but it's still
What?
very light here. Yeah, the sun doesn't set until like 10 in the evening. And it never gets completely dark. We have a few weeks in the summer where it's never actually nighttime, which is
Wow.
beautiful.
Ronika, I didn't know that about Ireland, but I know I've always
Yeah,
wanted to visit.
yeah. It's a magical place. It really is. It's amazing.
So I'm in LA County in California, the United States, and over here it is Tuesday, 2:25 p.m. And you're still, because I'm not too sure what there, you're just 8 hours ahead, or you're
8
just
hours ahead.
eight
Yeah.
hours ahead. Okay, really incredible. And really incredible that it gets, I mean, you have a whole day of daylight. Does that
Yeah.
affect your circadian rhythm at all? I mean, or is that just what
Um,
you're just used to it?
I think at this point I'm used to it. There was definitely a time when I was very kind of shocked at how late it stayed light, and also in the winter how dark it is. Like the sun doesn't actually really come up until 9 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa.
Um, so it's just living in the north of the world is a particular rhythm that you do get used to. But it's also beautiful because you really are so very aware of the change of the seasons. And you're forced to be in kind of in nature's rhythm a little bit more. Just because you have to turn your lights on so early in the winter time, and you don't ever have to turn your lights on in the summer. So that's amazing.
Being so in tune with nature, I mean, I would feel, at least for me personally, that if I was really that in tune with nature, that I would become more natural myself and kind of be more with the flow of life. Do you find that happening to you?
Absolutely. And I think that's I think finding nature again has been a call that I've answered again and again and again in my lifetime. Every time I am forced to move to a city, I find a way back towards nature. I find a way back to living in the countryside, to living in as I am currently in a little hut at the edge of a forest by a river, where in order to get to my bedroom, I have to climb up a ladder, and I sleep in a little cave-like bedroom with the bats roosting on the other side of the wall. So, um, yes is the answer to your to the question of does it make you be closer to nature? It does. And as soon as I find myself being closer to nature, I find myself healing. Um, so if whenever I have the opportunity to just exist deep within the belly of nature, I do, because it's beautiful.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that sounds like the life indeed. And how incredible that you can exist within nature, live in a little hut, and still have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, my camera is off, hence
It's okay if your camera's
I
off.
don't
I
know about the
mean,
Wi-Fi.
we're still connecting,
But
you know, like
yeah, we're still connecting, we're still talking, which I think is such a beautiful that's one of the beautiful things that we get to do in this day and age. But is it's also a very ancient thing, connecting to other humans and trying to tell each other stories is what made us human in the first place. So this is a very ancient tradition you and I are following today.
I'm writing this down. Being able to tell stories is ancient connection.
Yeah,
Isn't that
I think so.
beautiful? And this is why it feels in alignment. This is why it feels happy and connected because we're doing what we're meant to do and we're doing what our ancestors
We
have done for thousands of years in
Yeah,
order to
I
really
think
connect.
I think, well, I always kind of paint this picture. I painted this picture in a very early theater production that I was involved in. And it was the moment we became human. And I think the moment that we stepped into humanity was the moment where the first of us stood up by the fire and started singing or started dancing or started telling a story. I think that was the defining moment, that not war, not building great buildings, not writing or accountancy or farming or making animals yield to our will. I think it was the moment we started telling stories, started expressing ourselves in a way that had never existed in the history of the universe before, as far as we know. I mean, obviously, there might be other storytellers somewhere out there, but as far as we know, we are the only ones who tell stories.
And speaking of writing or telling stories and how people originally started expressing themselves, I have a poem that I wanted to start with. And when I also wrote you a poem, when we're done with this, I'll read it at the end. May I read what I wrote?
Please, please do.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Here it goes. It's called Inspired Voices. Inspired voices, tried choices, reciprocal smiles, and camaraderie. It's what dances within my veins and pumps blood into organs that have prayed to come alive. I twitch with the emerging delight of a new connection, or perhaps a personal reflection, anticipation at the forefront, to create a better me, integrated within a web of illusion and a reality sometimes bouncing off despair, and as a result, growing more chest hair, must be in the air. And that
Mm,
I wrote that because I was inspired by you and
beautiful.
by today's episode. So thanks so much for listening.
That's very powerful. And
Thank
knowing,
you.
having been invited to know a little bit about your story, I mean, that's very poignant and speaks truth, in many ways. So thank you for sharing.
Well,
That's
thanks
really
for
beautiful.
listening. I'm all about truth and I'm about listening to your truth. Why don't you tell us about your story? I mean, what brought you to where
Oh
you're at
my
today?
goodness.
I know. I know that it's a
Been a
loaded
trip.
story.
It's been quite the trip. So I started out in life as the daughter of a Austrian woman, who was very addicted to many things, among them drugs. And she somehow traveled to India and got very high, and found her way to a very secluded, nomadic, goat herding mountain tribe in the Himalayas. Um, and the tribe that she found up there in the mountains, right next to a war zone, they didn't have electricity. They lived in clay huts. They essentially had, an existence that you'd find in the 15th century. No TV. There was one telephone in the village, but nothing else. So she climbed a mountain and took loads of drugs and found my father, who he only just passed away. This is actually my first time talking on a podcast after his passing. He passed away a few weeks ago.
I'm so sorry.
Um, yeah. And well, they found each other, and uh, consumed various substances, and had me. And I was born I was born into this tribal community that was very close to nature. And when I was born, we didn't have a TV in the village. We lived, we had no running water, we had no sanitation, we had no um you name it, we didn't have it. So that's where I was born. The first few things that I learned were how to make a fiber out of nettles, which I still do. That is a
How to
craft
make
that I
a what? A fiber what?
fiber out of nettles, stinging nettles. So the plant.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and you can turn it into fiber. You can turn it into cloth, into string, into bags, into dresses. So that was one of the first things that I learned, and I still practice that craft
That's
to this.
incredible.
Yeah, it's good. And so the way I grew up kind of in the first few years of my life was during the daytime I lived in this very beautiful tribal community, but both my parents said, "Oh, we should give trigger warnings for this if that's okay." So both my parents abused me sexually throughout my throughout my childhood, from when I was a very small child, from when I was a toddler, essentially. So it was kind of a dual life where the community in the tribe and my family outside of my parents, they were so amazing, and it was a really healthy way of growing up. But then when the doors were closed, obviously that was a completely different experience.
So the community was supportive, but obviously behind
But my
doors was a whole
parents,
other story.
yeah, but my parents obviously were not. And I don't know, I cannot really tell to this day whether the community knew what was going on. If they knew, they didn't do anything.
Hmm.
Which is, I don't know if that's disappointing or if that's just something I have to come to accept.
Hmm.
But I lived there until I was 7 years old, and then my mother took me back to Austria. She's from Austria. My dad's obviously Indian. Um, and then I grew up in Austria, and my mother's side of the family are very, how do the rich like to say it, comfortable. They're very comfortable. They were very well to do, which was obviously a complete switch to coming from a tribal community that doesn't have electricity, to going to live in a mansion that has its own library, and to, take my summers in the vineyard, and get to choose which horse I want to buy this year.
Wow.
So I went from having to carry water on my head from the river, to wash my clothes, to the vineyard,
Mm.
was
How
quite
did that,
the
Ronika, how did that happen? How were you able to, or how was your mom able to
my
go from,
my mother's family was very wealthy.
I see,
It was
okay.
she never was, like, my mother is not wealthy, but my mother's father, and the whole family from that side, um was very well to do, and she was kind of you know uh the rich girl that got lost but then got fixed up. Um
Okay.
Again, when she returned from India, so they bought her a house and they made sure that she was okay, and you know the traditional story of no comeuppance. She's fine still. She lives in a beautiful big house, and she owns several horses and vines, so she's fine. But obviously the sexual abuse, did kind of taper off as I was growing up. But uh,
You mean once you moved to Austria, that's when the
once
abuse
I moved to
started?
Austria, it didn't fully stop until I was 11. But it got a lot less. And my father and my mother divorced when I was 12. And my father stayed in India. He only came to visit very occasionally in Austria, and then he never came to visit after they divorced, which was when I was 12. Um, so when we when we are abused at a very young age as children, our sexuality doesn't really develop properly.
Right.
So that was the case for me. Um, so by the time I was 13, I was drinking quite heavily. I had attempted suicide when I was 11. And I was drinking quite heavily by the time I was 13. Um, and by the time I was 16, I had pretty much done everything to myself except drugs. The one saving grace that the one thing I'm grateful to my parents for. I'm not grateful for many things regarding my parents, but the one thing I am grateful to them for is the fact that I never ever was tempted to try any kind of drugs, just because I knew the consequences too
Because you had
well.
seen it. Yeah.
I had seen it. I had experienced first. They had drugged me as well many times when I was a child. So I was drugged with LSD on several occasions during my childhood. So I already knew the effects of drugs, and I didn't need to experiment really because I already knew.
Hmm.
Um, so by the time I was 16, this is all very heavy. We're gonna lighten it up in the end. Like, I promise. It
I
just
really
goes
appreciate it. I
good.
mean, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Like, really,
Um,
Ronika,
so
thank you for being
yeah.
open.
So I always try to keep it light, but it's there's nothing light. So by the time I was 16, I was quite in a quite a bad way. And then, as it always is the case when there's a vulnerable young girl who doesn't really know her way, there will be people ready and willing to exploit that.
Yeah.
So I met a Hell's Angel whose profession it was to exploit young girls. And he brought me into prostitution, um, which I was in for 4 years. I finished high school and I got accepted into law school. And I was in law school when he got put in jail, and then one thing led to another, and then I was trafficked, essentially brought away to another part of the country, where I was then held in a room for about 16 months, until I don't really know. I always say I kind of broke out of it. I still haven't found the word for what actually happened. I just woke up one morning and walked out the door. Consequences be damned, and then just kind of survived through the consequences,
Hmm.
of which there were many. Um, I started working for Amnesty International. That was my second job after prostitution, was to work for Amnesty. And then I met an Irishman, and fell very deeply in love with an Irishman, and then came to Ireland. And the Irishman went away, but the my love for the country stayed. And that was 13 years ago, and I have been living ever since. I had two beautiful children along the way here in Ireland. I was very lucky to be able to build a career. I was very lucky to be able to build relationships and happiness, and beautiful little houses that are uh, have spotty Wi-Fi but are beautiful otherwise. Um, so that's it in a nutshell. Now there's a lot of heavy stuff in there, but I'm sure we're gonna talk about it all now.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, for really for being open and honest and true with your story. I mean, I'm just really blessed to be able to hear you come out on the other side from the everything that you had been through, and really being this incredible beacon of light that you are now, and how you're transferring all of your past energy into creativity, which
Yeah.
is really an astounding way to resubmit some of the traumatic experiences that you've had in the past. And so, how were you able to rebuild yourself after experiencing what you experienced?
So I think the one thing that I always say when people ask me how this question, or the question of how do I get through difficult times,
Sure.
um, the thing that I always come back to, the thing that I always kind of I shrink it down to is 10 seconds. So if you can be fine for 10 seconds, you survive the next 10 seconds. And then maybe the 10 seconds after that, you don't just survive, you have a spark of joy. And the 10 seconds after that, that spark grows. And if it fades again, okay, well, that's that. But you existed for 10 seconds in your purest form. And that is a tremendous accomplishment.
It
And
really
as soon
is.
as
I
you've,
love that.
as yeah, exactly. And as soon as you've done it once, you find the way you find a way to doing it again and again and again until the 10 seconds that you experienced living, truly living, actually being alive. Those 10 seconds expand into more and more and more until all of a sudden you've lived your whole life like this.
Wow,
Um,
that's incredible.
so I didn't survive um I didn't survive horrendous things. I survived 10 seconds and then 10 seconds and then 10 seconds and then another one. So the journey down can be so quick, but the journey up, it can be just as quick. So when we don't look at it like a huge bit, I'm 33 now. So that's 33 years of just ups and down and roller coaster or whatever. Um, Whenever I get overwhelmed, I still just break it down to, okay, but the next breath, what is that going to be like? Can I take my next breath with
Mhm.
intention,
Ooh, I
with
love that.
calmness, with purpose? Um, and that's what I think that's the only way for me to kind of get through.
I have a question. So, can I get my next breath? Can I take my next breath with calmness and purpose and intention? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Can you walk us through?
So when you are truly alone with yourself, completely and utterly alone with yourself in the world, um, so I'll go back to the moment when the decision, I didn't make the decision made me to leave prostitution.
Okay.
It was 12th of April 2012. It was the start of spring. I was living in the mountains. The snow was just starting to melt in the mountains. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. I was I was lying in the bed that I had been raped in many times, that I had been beaten up in. The mattress had my blood on it. Um, and I woke up with my head at the foot end because I couldn't sleep the other way, the right way up, because that's how I had sex to work. That's how I worked. That's how I did my sex work. So in order to differentiate between that end and the foot end, I slept at the foot end so that my brain wouldn't be in the same position that it was during my working hours. And I woke up that morning and I looked outside. I only had this tiny little window. I didn't really have a window, just like a tiny little batch of light that came through. Um, and I felt like I wasn't real. I felt like I didn't exist. So none of the breaths that I was taking had anything to do with me. They didn't have any connection. My body was doing a thing, but then again, my body was forced to do so many things that I didn't want it to do, that I had lost the ability to make my body do things that I actually did want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that first breath that I took was it was like drinking the elixir of life again. So I stood on my bed, and I looked out the little window that I had, and I realized that I could go. I just could. And then I took a breath, and the breath was the moment of realization that you are allowed to exist. Not only are you allowed to exist, you should exist. And the form, the shape, the being that your body represents, that's just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the breath that comes into your soul, the breath that comes from your soul, that's an entirely different thing. And if you can marry the two, if you can create one breath in your lifetime where your soul and your existence feel aligned, feel like they should be in this place at this time, in this moment, that's your 10 seconds. Those
Hmm.
are your 10 most powerful seconds. And it happened to me in that moment. I stood up on my bed and I took a breath and I thought, no, I am meant to be right here, right now. This is my fullest existence. But the next thing I do is me walking out that door.
Hmm.
Um, so I think to just kind of that was a very long answer to your question.
Okay.
But to fully exist by yourself with no mirror and no completely naked, um, and to be able to accept it's that, then your breath will come out aligned.
Ronika, as you're saying this and you're describing it, I'm feeling like like that first breath is like a rebirth,
Yes,
like being born, like the breath of life.
yes. I think I felt very much like that. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really empowering. So basically, when you are able to be in the present moment, because that's what you went in feeling your soul and your existence and taking that breath for 10 seconds, feeling like they should be together, soul, breath, existence, that brought you in the present moment and made you realize I am exactly where I'm supposed to be right here, right now, at this very moment in these 10 seconds. And being right there, right now, at that moment within those 10 seconds, you allowed yourself to exist, and being an allowance of your existence, you were then able to take your power back and take your love back, love
yes,
for yourself, and and walk out.
yeah, exactly. And that has happened to me again and again, where I tend not to regret the things that I've done in the past, or I tend not to have too much like worry or anxiety about the future. Again, because I don't feel like wherever I end up is somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be. I always end up where I'm supposed to be anyway.
Mhm.
So to appreciate your existence, and it's very difficult to do that. My God,
Oh
is it ever
yeah.
difficult to be naked with yourself? Oh my goodness. Um, or looking at yourself in the mirror, truly, honestly, with no filter, with honesty. That's a
Mhm.
difficult thing. Oh my
It
God.
is so damn difficult. No, it really
Just to
is.
sit with yourself in nakedness.
It
Like,
is. It's challenging.
my goodness. So I try to do that, every so often. I will just sit with myself, naked, not like physically naked, or that is a powerful thing as well, but like just honest with honesty, um, and allow yourself to think that it's okay that you're doing this,
Mhm.
that it's okay to
Mhm.
exist exactly the shape that you exist in.
Mhm.
And if you feel like it is absolutely not okay, that you don't want to exist in this exact moment in this exact shape, then okay, take that breath and find out how you can get to that place. What do you need to change, to get to that place? Um, and again, what do you need to change in the next 10 seconds? What can you do in the next 10 seconds? You can set your intentions in the next 10 seconds. And in the next 10 minutes, you can take a small action. In the next 10 days, you can take a big one. And in the next 10 years, you will have come to that place where you sit with yourself naked and you're happy.
That is so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
Not only is it beautiful, but you've inspired me, because I mean, I can't say that I'm fully comfortable being, naked by myself,
Mm,
but absolutely willing to try that. And that is the naked truth, to be with the physical body that the universe, that God, that the cosmos has given me, and to really be an appreciative of this form, because this form was given to me, it was granted to me. It's a blessing. And if I could sit with that blessing, even if just for 10 seconds, then naturally those 10 seconds will keep increasing
they
and keep
always do. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah, these tiny steps are so powerful. And before you know it, oh my God, you've just transformed into somebody who's much happier. So there's a painting. I wish I could have a camera on, but there's a
Oh,
painting. Um, Maybe we can put in the show notes or something, or I can
okay.
send you the picture and you can put it on the YouTube video.
Yeah.
So I painted this painting, on the toilet floor of a women's refuge, in the middle of the pandemic. Now, how I got there is a whole nother story. But I was living when the pandemic started, I was living in a women's refuge. I had my ex had become quite difficult and dangerous, and so I had to leave with my kids. So we were living in the refuge, and the only place where I could paint was the toilet because that was the only place I could have light. Because my children were asleep in the because you only get like a little room and then like a separate toilet. So I could only paint in the toilet. I painted this picture that says peace, purpose, power, and persistence.
Oh, all
And
these peas, huh?
yeah, exactly. And the first image is of a woman meditating with peace. The second image is of a woman with her child, purpose. The third image is of a woman finding her source of power. And the fourth image is of a woman walking towards the mountains with persistence. Um, and I come back to those as well, where whenever I think, okay, but do I have peace? How can I find it? Do I have a purpose? How can I find it? Do I have my power? Where is it? And
Hmm.
do I have persistence? Because without persistence, then you can have everything else. But if you're not actually persisting on your journey, um, the others fizzle away.
So let's go with I'm writing down your P's because I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. So it's peace,
Power, peace, purpose,
purpose,
power,
power,
and persistence.
and persistence.
Yeah.
And can't wait to see this painting, by the way. And it's I love how you asked yourself that. Do I have peace? Where can I find it? Do I have purpose? Where can I find it? Do I have power? Where can I find it? Do I have persistence? Where or how can I find it? And so in this painting, when you were completing this painting, were you finding answers during that time, or did you find answers afterwards?
I think the answers kind of kept coming towards me. So that painting, the painting I'm going to show you is like is a duplicate. But the painting now hangs in the reception office for the women's refuge. And every woman that has gone through the refuge since, so in the last 5 years, has seen that painting. Um, so hopefully, maybe in a small way, that was my gift to all these other women who go through that service, which is an amazing service. Um,
And that's an amazing gift.
so yeah, and so yes, I come. It's hanging on my bathroom door now. Um, so I see it every morning. Um, and yes, I come back to it all the time. And did I find them? I found them millions of times and then lost them again, and then find them again, and then lose them again because I'm human. So as a human being, you're gonna lose shit, and then
Sure.
you're gonna find it again. um, so to also forgive yourself when you lose them for a while, completely, that's
Yeah.
completely fine. Of course, you're gonna lose yourself. You're human.
Yeah.
Um, it's okay if you're lost and powerless and purposeless and not at peace. It will come
Yeah.
back at some point.
Absolutely. It's meant to come back. I mean, for some, right? If you want,
Yeah,
if you want it to come back and you're persistent about it as one of your P's, eventually it'll come back. It'll come back into alignment.
it always does. Yeah.
And so, how did your life experience and everything that you've gone through turn into this incredible creative endeavor where you are a screenwriter and a director and doing all these festivals? How did all of this come about?
So I think I'd always been a writer. I think the writing was the purpose. That's
Great.
definitely a very strong purpose to that. I think I've always been a writer. It's always been in there. I love to paint. I love to obviously work with my nettles that I will never stop talking about. But writing was such a form of escape for me. Escaping into stories was the most important thing I had during my childhood. So that's always been there. I started actually writing in my actually my first big publication came when I was pregnant with my son. I wrote a piece called Nobody's Daughter, which was picked up by a magazine, and then I won a literary prize in the north of Ireland um, for the same piece. So I kind of started writing more as another form of therapy, as another form of through stories, trying to understand what had happened to me. And in order to understand what my life had been, I had to dissect other people's lives, and it's much easier to do that with fictional characters. So I did that, and I fell into, not so much into screenwriting. Like screenwriting, I've always loved film. I've always adored the medium, and screenwriting felt like it fit my voice really, really well. But the rest of the film industry, I kind of fell backwards into. I had never planned on being a director until I was hired to direct. I had never planned on creating a film festival until I found myself opening one. I had never planned on producing anything really until I found myself, producing plays and shows. Um, so the original goal was just to sit in a beautiful house in the forest and write. um and then the world pulled at me, and dragged me in front of the camera, behind the camera, onto the stage. And I feel comfortable in all these spaces. It's great. But my true source of happiness is to um look into people's hearts and souls, through stories, um, and try to understand what goes on within all of us. Um, and those are the stories that I tend to tell again and again, that speak to us, that try to explain pain and hurt and disappointment and awkwardness and stupidity and um, you know, embarrassment and silly love and crushes and hiccups and farts, all the beautiful, gorgeous, amazing things that make us human. It is
Yes.
Human beings are such wonderful creatures. I love us. We're great. And I know we're very disappointing and we're awful in so many ways, but we are awesome. So to try and dissect what it is to be human, it's such a challenge. Not one single lifetime could ever complete that challenge. But I love the journey towards it anyway.
That's really incredible. And so, what's interesting is you've mentioned that when thanks so much for sharing all this. It's so motivating and inspiring. And you mentioned that it basically almost like fell on your lap, correct? When
Yeah,
in just following your inner voice and wanting to tell stories and feel through this human experience, other doors opened up.
yeah, yeah. They always tended to, and I always say I have to be so careful with what I want because I always get it. And I really learned that lesson. Like it really always, like I do. If I find myself kind of setting my mind to something, it tends to just align. Because I just, I don't know, do I manifest it or whatever it is. So I have become really careful. I have become so careful
Right.
with what I want, with what I actually set my mind to, because I will achieve it.
Hmm.
So therein lies, but that's a very dangerous thing. That is a very, like, wanting something and achieving something is a very, very dangerous thing because um if I set my mind to I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm going to be the richest woman in the world, I what if it happens? Wouldn't that be the most awful thing in the world? I would be so unhappy. I could
Hmm.
never fulfill that role.
Right.
So I have to be so careful with what I want, with what I set my energy and my mind and my purpose and my power and my persistence towards, right? Because I will get it.
Hmm.
So I don't want the getting it to be something that harms other people or that harms me or that makes me someone I am not, or that makes me someone I don't want to be, that makes me someone unkind or greedy or just ugh, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm so careful about wanting something. Um, because I do get stuff.
It's interesting as you're saying this. I mean, what I'm feeling is that that's true for everyone, and a lot of people are not aware, and that's because you're aware because you're in a state of awareness and you're able to see these things. You're actually able to be an observer, especially living in nature the way you are. You're able to slow down and actually see that these things are happening, kind of like you are the screenwriter of your life. We all are, we're all
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
directors of our
absolutely.
life, and we're sitting here making our movie, and we don't even know as it's unfolding in
Yeah,
front of us. We're creating our own movies. And so, but you're highly aware of this, but a lot of people are not aware of this. And in not being aware, people wonder why certain things happen, and
mm,
forgetting that it's something that they wanted or that they already had created for themselves before. And so sometimes there's a lapse in time, but for the most part, I love how you said, I mean, you are careful with what you want because you're going to get it, and that's the same for everyone. And really be mindful with your intentions and how you're wanting things and why you're wanting things, and will it benefit you, and will it benefit others? Are you doing it for your greater good and the greater good of all involved? And really kind of just like, I mean, I'm just taking all these as incredible tips because I know that
yeah.
this stuff it's happening every day, all the time for everybody.
And you said something really beautiful there. I think one of the first sentences that you said just now was create. You used the word create, I think, twice or three times. And it's exactly precisely right. You said something along the lines of what people have already created for themselves, because we do. We create this. This doesn't, this life is not a kind of pre-written novel that we just have to read. It's something that we have an active hand in. So the energy that we create with each action is so powerful that that's why very often when I find myself in a decision making process or in a life changing event kind of moment, um, the first thing I do is just slow down, and I don't take action. I take inaction because I know that my actions will have consequences, and I want to be very mindful of the actions that I do take because they will create an outcome. Every action does. Every inaction also does. So I try to see what is the outcome going to be
Mm-hmm.
before I either do or don't do something. And that comes with life experience as well. I think the older I get, the more calm I get about everything really. And everything that seemed like a big deal a few years ago seems less and less so, and I become very mellow and happy with age, which is great.
It sounds very mindful. So you've become very mindful.
Very mindful, very demure.
Mhm. I love how you said, I absolutely love how you said to take in action as well, because to slow down, like especially when things are speeding up, like let's say there's something you really want, all of a sudden, bam, it's here, like the next day, you're like, holy cow, hang on a minute. But if you slow down, take a deep breath, and just allow that, you're still gonna take some type of action, because even if you don't take an action, there's still gonna be a result. There's gonna be a result either way. But if you slow down and get back into your humanness, your natural state, then you'll really be able to increase your intuition and really feel what's right for you and for everybody involved.
Yeah, and always approach those decisions with the maximum, like radical kindness. I think the only thing any of us should be radical about is kindness towards yourself and towards others. So always try to I try to put everything through a filter of like, okay, but what's the kind thing to do? How can I
Mhm.
be kind to myself in this moment?
Mhm.
How can I express my love for myself and for the rest of the world in this moment? Um, Again, when we come back to the four P's, to will this decision give me peace? Will it give me purpose? Will it give me power? Will it lead me towards it? Is it in line with my persistence? Um, so yeah, that's
Right
where I
now,
was
when you
going.
said, is it in aligned with my persistence? In aligned with my persistence, does that also mean in align with my alignment, of your life alignment of your like values, your moral values, and the things that represent you, your own radical energy?
I think so. I think, but that is what that goes back to. I think you cannot, I can't, I think you can't really know that. You don't know your alignment until until you've done the whole sitting with yourself naked thing. Um, because so often we chase after an alignment that isn't actually really what we're supposed to be chasing. First of all, if you're chasing something, don't. Chasing
Right.
is you let things come to you.
Yes.
The things that come to you should be there. The things that you have to run after and get out of your way to drag those things down. I don't think that necessarily those are the healthiest things. But if you walk steady on your path and walk with persistence towards the thing that you feel aligned with, oh yeah, but that's not chasing. You know what I mean? That's
Hmm.
not a frantic running after. That's exactly as you said, um, walking in alignment with who you're supposed to be, which is, I think, a very different approach to getting what you
So
want.
you absolutely love that too. So don't chase and let things come to you, which is really difficult for a lot of us to do. I know I've done it myself. And one of the most difficult thing for me personally has been to let go and
Yeah,
let in. And because, anytime we're chasing things, we're actually putting walls up and we're not even aware of it. It becomes the persistence becomes a resistance at that case. But and that's when you're chasing that with a different type of persistence. But if you come back to your purpose and you're persistent with your own purpose in a very steady way, the way that you said it, in the steady way, it has purpose.
it
And
has
that's when you
purpose.
come into a
And if
more
you're
truthful alignment.
Yeah. And if you're chasing after something, it's so exhausting. Oh my God. It's so exhausting. Like it's so tiring to run after something or try to create something or try to force something,
Hmm.
pull it into existence when it doesn't want to be there. The best example is when I write a story, um, and I can just feel that it doesn't want to be told or it doesn't want to be told by me, right? I don't finish it. I don't try and force it into existence. I don't try to, violently rip it out of the ether. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to gently land in its own existence. We are all supposed to gently land in our own existence. Some of us get really, really difficult paths towards that. Your path has been extremely difficult. My path has been, not great. So that wasn't gentle. We weren't gently placed into existence as we are now, happy within ourselves. That wasn't gentle at all. But
Right.
for those of us who don't get that gentle placement, it is on us to learn the lessons on how
Yes.
to create the gentleness. And those of us who have had to create the gentleness because there wasn't any, I think as we are proving in this very conversation, very often those people tend to become storytellers or teachers or poets or artists because
Hmm.
we try to put that back into the world. The gentleness that we weren't given, we
Yeah.
try to create in the world, right?
Yes.
So that's why we're talking. That's why you do what you do. That's why I do what I do, is because our journeys have been difficult. And we know what it's like when we are not placed gently into our peace. Um, so we try to make sense of that by speaking, by writing, by existing, by teaching. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I absolutely, I feel that 100% for myself, and I can't say it's true for everyone because there's a lot of people that haven't been placed in that type of suffering or hardship and they're still being creative and they're able to still filter voices and stories and still feel it from their heart. And because we all have our own purposes or our own ways of explaining and expressing ourselves based on the things that we've gone through or haven't gone through. And so, I mean, in all of that, I wouldn't have had it any other way. I mean, personally,
Yeah. Same.
I remember one of my therapists, a psychologist once said to me, I bet you feel, you bet you ask yourself, why me? And I'm like, actually, no. I've never asked myself, why me? Why did I have to go through this? Why not me? I mean, so
Oh,
why
yeah.
not me? And I
Oh, it
was
was always
able,
going to be me. It
yeah,
was always
right.
going to be me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like my parents only created one child, in that perfect storm of drugs and sex abuse and whatever else. My existence is one pinpoint in the infinite universe. Of course, me. Who else?
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
and billions of other stories, and every single story is, yeah, of course. That's exactly how it should have happened. That's exactly how it would have always happened.
Right.
Um, so in the retelling of the universe, the infinite number of stories that could possibly exist, of course, I had to be one of them.
Yeah. And thank you for telling us. Really, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful to be where you're at right now. You've
Yes,
you've
I'm
turned it
very,
all into you've bloomed. And
I
so
think so. Yeah, I
yeah.
hope so. I hope I continue to.
Well, you will because you're following your one to your four P's, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
My peas are on my bathroom door. That sentence shouldn't be taken out of context.
Your inner P's. You found inner
Exactly.
P's.
Yes. And now we have to put up a picture of actual peas in the pod, so
Oh, I love
to
that.
just
Yeah.
confuse everybody.
Do a new painting with peas in a pod, and
In
you've
the
got your
pod,
peas
yeah,
purpose, your power, and your persistence.
and my peas. I do like peas actually with butter. They're delicious.
Oh
So,
yeah, they're very delicious. Very delicious. Oh man.
yeah.
So where can what's gonna how can we or I don't know how I want to ask
What,
this question.
how can one reach me and how can one read me? My website is online. I have
No,
books
actually,
out.
I do usually end by asking that, but I guess my question, and I will end by asking that, but not yet, Ronica.
No,
I have
yeah,
a
okay, okay,
question.
good, good, good.
Where do
Yeah.
you feel you're going right now with
Oh God.
your screenwriting,
Um,
your writing? And I know that right now it's like you're flowing with the universe, and you're not really seeking, you're just allowing it in.
yeah.
Where do you feel, or how much more will you allow in, or what do you see an actual direction, or do you feel a direction, or are you just going with the flow?
Yes, I love that question. I am going with the flow very much so. There are a few projects that are happening just in my screenwriting career. There's a beautiful project that I'm very, very proud of that I'm not sure how much I can talk about, but it's a project that speaks to femininity, speaks to masculinity, and I got to really explore what masculinity means, which is a
Wow.
beautiful. I Masculinity is a beautiful thing. It is a gorgeous, beautiful thing. Men are amazing, wonderful people. And I got to sit
Thank you.
really with that. Yes, no, they are. But saying that as a survivor of rape
Yeah.
by men makes me even more convinced that masculinity is a gorgeous, beautiful thing, as is femininity.
Hmm.
And the celebration of which wherever you land on towards one or towards the other or towards none, whichever expression you choose in that whole circle, um
Hmm.
as long as you're really happy with wherever that expression lands. But I got to explore very specifically masculinity in that project, and I got to marry my interest in that and my interest in archaeology and my interest in tribal cultures all together mashed into one, which is just it was the perfect project for me. So that's on the go. That's being worked at. And then with everything else, I think I am just going with the flow and I'm just allowing things to come towards me as they want to. Um, and I've just finished a poetry collection. So I'm not actually writing poetry at the moment because I'm just letting that muscle rest.
Yes.
So I'm painting a lot. I am working with my nettles because it's high season for the nettles at the moment. So I am you'll find me walking around forests and picking stinging nettles at the moment. That's what I'm doing. And that's where my flow is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the most prominent, what's the most profound revelation that you had about masculinity?
That it's healthy to be to have a sense of masculinity is to have a sense of health within yourself.
Hmm.
And to me, when I look at a man, and I'm using man here very kind of very loosely, so anybody who identifies as a man, anybody who feels in that moment, even though they don't. fully identify as a man. Everybody who let's put it this way, everybody who taps into the masculine um energy in any given moment,
Mhm.
whenever I do for myself, I feel very complete. I feel healthy. I feel I feel grounded and earthed. So what I got to explore was the story is about a man who comes from a very, today we'd call it toxic masculinity kind of culture. I can't say too much about the project. I'll
That's
try to
okay.
kind of
No worries.
circumnavigate
Yeah, that's
my
okay.
NDAs. But he comes from a culture where a warlike culture, a culture that is full of the things that we think makes men what they are, which is, war and conflict and superiority and fratricide in his case. And then he becomes naked within himself. He is stripped of his language, of his heritage, of his culture. And he has to rebuild himself, and he has to take that first breath that we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
And as he does, I think he has a moment of loving himself very deeply. Whereas while he was living in his warlike state, I don't think he ever loved himself. I don't think he was ever happy with himself. And he couldn't have been at peace with himself. Of course not. He was at war. Um, but then he became naked, and then he became childlike, and then he became lost, and then he took a breath, and then he loved himself. And he loved himself in a very particular way as a man.
that's
And
really incredible.
as I was writing that moment, and he's standing on a hill and it's raining, and he is naked with himself. As I was writing that moment, I loved him.
Hmm.
And I loved him not because he's a, really awesome character. I didn't love him. I loved him standing there as a man. And I would have loved if the and there is a moment actually for the female main character where she has a very similar kind of revelation about her femininity. Um, but in that moment, I was so proud of him. I was so happy with him, for him to just have that moment of existence with himself, to be at peace. Um, and that's very powerful. And I think I often have this. I've given this as kind of a talk and a lecture. This very kind of topic, um, in the context of surviving sexual assault and then finding your gender expression after. Um, so my femininity, after my sexuality, my femininity, and my sexual expression, and the fact that I really actually like sex, even though I am a survivor of severe sexual abuse. It kind of falls into that same category of being happy within your body, being happy within your gender, being happy within your sexual orientation, within your sexual expression, within the way you express your gender or lack thereof.
Yeah,
It you know um it can be a very healing thing for survivors, I think, to rediscover that it's okay that you are what you are, who you are, even though an attempt has been made to take that away from you. So I think those thoughts and ideas and moments are definitely colored to a great extent by my experience with sexual abuse.
that's really incredible. So impactful. And this is this rebirth of this man, is a documentary or a
This is
movie
a
or
film.
a
This is a
film?
feature.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's all I can say about it. I probably have
Yeah.
already. If my producers hear this, they're probably going to be like, "Oh, Veronica, could you not have described a major moment?" But it's okay. I'm sure. I didn't say the name or anything.
And so, I mean, thanks so much for sharing that. It's incredible and it's really inspiring. And I have one more question. You have a poetry book, correct?
I have three.
Oh,
I'm
you have
three
three.
out,
That's
and I have
amazing.
three out, and my fourth one is coming out. We launch it on the 26th. I have a little party in Dublin where we launch my fourth collection, which will be called Lake's End. My first one was called I Love You, Dave Taylor. And then I have Joy Klings, and last year was it was called She. And then this year's one is called Lake's End. I try to bring one out every year just to kind of they feel like they feel like a progression of who I am. I'm going to be 34, so I've brought one out for each year of my 30s so far. Um, so yeah, that's it. They're a journey in and of themselves, I think.
Well, that's incredible. And I'm really feeling blessed by your connection. And I wanted to read a poem on the topic of poetry that I
Oh
wrote
my God. Okay.
dedicated to you and our energy today. And thanks so much again. So this poem is called Ronika Merl. So here it goes. Run down till sundown, from overrated to no frown. I've used pieces from the past, obliterated by shackles, and untangled them to find verbiage I can use to create an image, imagination, creation, a new foundation, more than a placemat, more than a place I once sat, more than a song I sung before. This is where my heart's at. I weave my inspiration, use words to love and interpret feels. These feels are what's reals. And I open the door for you to try it too, more than just in a blue moon. Yeah.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Oh
thank
my
you so much.
God. This is incredible. This is amazing. I don't think anybody has ever done that for me before. This is just
Oh, thank you.
absolutely
Appreciate
incredible.
that.
Thank you. So I'm going to cherish that. I'm going to write that out and put it up on my bathroom wall right underneath
Well, I'll type it out and
where
I'll send it
the
to you.
I no, I'm gonna write it out and do a little art. I'll make it into like a little piece of art. I think that's because printing is not good enough. Printing is not good enough for something so beautiful. So I'm gonna write it out. I'm gonna paint it out and really create something with it because it's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. You know what's incredible what you just said right now is that you would take this and create something of it. I would love to see what it is because ultimately it was the energy that I felt into you. So whatever you create, it's gonna still be you.
Yeah, and it's
So,
gonna just
yeah.
be an extension of what you've created. So it's just that's what art does. It's meant to grow and grow and grow. So
It is.
thank you for giving me this gift. This is really powerful. Thank you. Oh my
Well,
God.
thank you for giving me your gift. I mean, thank you so much for your beautiful energy. So, where can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners get a hold of you or your books?
Yes, there we go. My website exists. It's ronikamerl.com. My books are on Amazon. The new one's coming out on the 26th. And my film projects are also on my website. So I do have quite a few scripts that are up for grabs. Some of them have been optioned, but I think one or two that are on the website, the option has lapsed. So if anybody's interested to kind of see what's going on there. And then for collaborations or anything like that, I'm also available. But what I do, so I have another part of me that I didn't really talk about. I do also do a lot of outreach and activism, especially for
Beautiful.
people who have come through sexual abuse and assault. So that's I always say this: if anybody heard something today that they are struggling with, and just need someone to talk to on a very like I'm not a therapist or anything, but just sometimes it's you just need someone to reach out to.
Yeah.
And many people have done so over the years, and if I can help, I always do, and I always will. So that's another side of me that people I want people to feel like they can reach me if they need to. My contact details are on the website. Um, so yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Thank you so much. Oh my God, this is one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. This has been really fun. Oh my goodness.
Oh
Thank
man, I
you so
agree. The pleasure
much.
is mine. I know. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
on a Little Less Fear podcast. Wishing you love and light and just continue sharing your energy and being true and authentic because you're going to be changing the world. As you're changing yourself, it's got a ripple effect and all of that love reaches further than any other message out there. So I'm proud of you. Keep going. You got this. I mean, obviously, you know, you got all the peas in the pod.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronica. Looking forward to keeping in touch with you.
Yes, me too. I'm going to send you an email with the picture and my WhatsApp as well.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family about A Little Less Fear podcast. And if you are interested in being on my show, feel free to leave me an email at a little less fear at gmail.com. Or if you have any questions or comments and you also want to leave me an additional message, you can also do so from my website, leaving an inquiry at www.alittlelessfear.com. You can get a copy of my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Amazon Kindle Unlimited, also titled A Little Less Fear. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Leave me a review if you get a chance. I love to receive feedback, questions, and comments. And any way that I can be of support to you, please let me know. Thank you so much. I love you. Wishing you love, light, happiness, and many blessings your way.